Good afternoon and welcome back to Gulfstream Park. Thank you for joining us here on Gulfstream today. I'm Gabby Gaudette, joined by Ron Nicoletti here on this lovely Thursday afternoon. And while we had 11 races yesterday and a carryover in the Rainbow Six, once again today on this 11 race program continues to grow that carryover and of course our mandatory payout this coming Saturday.
4.1 million. We got the mandatory payout, but we also have a double thing today. We got to didn't say it. First race, $12,000 in the super high five. I was going to say double hangover, but that's not it. Not that I'm hungover. It just that's what come out.
The super high five there in race one. I know, it's been
Freudian
a long
slip.
couple of months.
Yes.
We need to get it together here, though, in that first race. But the PPs for Saturday actually did come out yesterday. We drew yesterday for Saturday's program, and so many races there, so many horses, in the Rainbow Six sequence. I believe it's over $300,000 if you were to play every single horse.
$658,000 plus, thanks
That's
to
right.
Marty McGee at the DRF tweeting that out yesterday. He did some work on that. I was shocked. I thought it wouldn't be that much, but there's 11, 12, 14, a lot of horses in there. Should be a lot of fun, and as you mentioned, got to get to Saturday, mandatory payout. Whoever has the most winners gets the money.
Yes, and I know you are coming up with a ticket. I came up with a ticket too, and we'll definitely show that sometime over the next couple of days. But we'll get into today's card, and we started all off with our featured wagers and our carryovers in race one. As we just mentioned, a $12,000 carryover there in the rolling super high five. So the action starts early, and with that carryover and a 7-horse field, expect this to really, really get up
Yeah,
there.
we've seen it go way over $100,000 sometimes, especially as you mentioned when there's a 7-horse field.
As we stick with the early 50-cent race one, the early 50-cent pick 5 does kick off, and you take a stab at it. We'll get to that in a few moments. In race 6 on this 11-race program, once again, as we were mentioning, $4.1 million there in the Rainbow Six. A tricky sequence, as we've had some key scratches in the sequence today. But as we mentioned as well, if it is not hit today or tomorrow, we have 2 racing programs until that mandatory payout there this coming Saturday. So really excited about that. Race 7 on today's card, the 50-cent late pick 5 starts it all off. So a lot of stuff going on today as usual. In race 1, we'll talk about here, going out to the turf course at 5 furlongs, this nice maiden special weight event, a small but potent field, and this does start the early pick 5.
Yeah, I really like this race. A great way to start the day, and you see my ticket there. I went with 1, 2, and 7. I found it tough to separate those two. 2 in the next race. I went 4 deep in race number 3. The 5-horse, I believe, is 10-1 on the morning line. It's my long shot today, maybe a little longer, 15-1 on the board. I got to go back and check. I didn't look at the line. And then 2 deep and 2 deep. So $48 ticket. See if we can get through this first couple of legs, get that bomber in, and then cruise rest of the way home.
Let's cruise home, indeed, and we'll look at the field here. And I kind of went in a different direction here, but the 1 and the 2 should get the majority of the money. You land on the 2, Alabama Ashley, as the top pick for Tom Albatrani. She seems to have the speed of the speed in here.
Yeah, she needs a little softer rating on the front end. She set those fractions last time of 21-4, 44-2 before yielding late to finish second. At this level and distance, we do have a jockey change. Edgar Zayas will be on that horse this afternoon. So Alabama Ashley, as you mentioned, speed of the speed, good connections. We'll see if this one can go gate to wire.
And she should be tough, as she is a proven turf sprinter. We also have the 1 complicated just to her inside here, who's cutting back to the 5 furlong distance from the 2 turn 7.5 maiden special weight performances, and she has been the beaten favorite, especially in her last 3 shots. So do you give her another shot for what it's worth with maiden special weight runners on the turf at 5 furlongs? The Shug McGahee burn is actually only 0 for 5, so that's something to consider. You just have to have a lot of speed. It's a specialist distance.
Yeah, and up there right now at 2 to 5 in the board, very early in the wagering, turning back to 5 after showing speed weakening late. That was back-to-back at 7.5 furlongs. That's a different game. You mentioned the connections there, stalking trip. cannot run early with number 2 Alabama Ashley. It will not bear very well for the horse.
At least she has a good bottom to her,
Right.
though, because she has been going 2 turns on the turf. The 7 Ginger Rush is the other option here for trainer Ralph Nix, coming in off of a freshening since early January. She gets back to the turf where she had to compete against Alabama Ashley actually at Gulfstream Park West. But you look at the pedigree here by Speightstown out of a mare who made $730,000 on the turf, and mostly synthetic and dirt, actually, excuse me. But this horse has some really good pedigree, I thought, to really move up on the turf, and she is a proven commodity there at 5 furlongs, so she could be kind of the sneaky in the race.
Yeah, I couldn't leave her up the ticket, as I mentioned, and it should be a square price because of the interest in both the 1 and the number 2 horses in there.
Move on to the second race, a starter optional claiming event, a mile and a 16th there on the main track. Scratch the 4 Ultra Oro, a horse who you figured would be part of the perhaps the early pick 5, a horse that was coming into the race in good form. Now the 6 Percussion, though, heavily favored on the morning line. This horse once again does seem to be that outside speed. Can Saturday Special run with him, though?
Yeah, this one is hoping to save just a tad more for the stretch runs, setting those solid fractions, giving away grudgingly. Got beat 3/4 by this horse's current nemesis, that horse called Rich Daddy. That was in the $50,000 rough and ready. George Navarro, Javier Castellano in the saddle, lots of things to like. We saw a horse coming off a long layoff yesterday, one of the few for George Navarro that didn't win, but this one has a lot more recency to it.
Got a little bit short there in the stretch run, but did actually go pretty fast early. You're talking about the horse yesterday, did go pretty fast early, just couldn't reserve anything for the late stages of the race. But this horse, as you mentioned, Rich Daddy, that's a horse that's been in very good form. Even Big Grandpa, a horse he faced several starts back, and 2 turns on the main track, I think, is his game. Now, beyond him, the 2 Carey Street is one who has a tremendous amount of back class. I mean, he was running against grade 2 company, but we haven't seen him since Saratoga. The barn actually does decently well with horses coming in off of similar layoffs on the dirt. However, is this kind of his preferred distance, or does that not even matter? Can he kind of overcome that and off the shelf?
Yeah, well, he went and looked, and he's got all those marathon races he's been running in, but he's also a multiple winner at a mile and a 16th distance, and he's trained consistently for the return, so there is a reason to believe he might be able to handle the mile and the 16th, but it looks like this is setting him up for somewhere down the line, which makes Percussion look a little bit better to me.
And they protect him in off of that layoff too, which is always a positive. We'll move on to the third race, though, another starter optional claiming event, a mile and a 16th there on the turf, and 2 scratches of the 2 Golden Point and the 3 Eaton Ridge. And I think you could go multiple different directions, but the 1 Rosebriar in here for Jane Sibeli, we haven't seen this horse since September at Laurel, and we'll actually take a look at that performance. And this was in that we have a Virginia bred stakes day, and that was one of them there in the Burt Allen, that restricted Virginia bred stakes, and he was just much the best going into the race and even after the race. We can see, unfortunately, Trevor McCarthy, I believe, loses his whip at some point here, but the horse just wins on pure talent alone. And what was he really facing? Probably not that much. The 3rd place finisher in there, Dan Hauser, has a lot of back class, and he was rallying late for a piece of it. Special Envoy is okay, but even prior to that, Ron, he has been competitive against really good company, and he's proven himself locally.
Yeah, I mean, that's my key there. He's had 6 races on this turf course with 3 wins and 3 seconds, so 6 for 6 in the money. You mentioned Jane Sibeli, Jose Lezcano, 8-time winner at the distance. Lots to like for me with number 1, Rose Breyer.
And he should be able to get that perfect stalking trip down on the inside rail. I think he's a horse that you really have to respect. We have the 4 Golden Rifle, who is pretty fast in his own right, but we also have some new shooters in here. The 6 Captain Dixie is one of them, first off the claim for trainer Jamie Ness, comes out of a good barn. Chad Brown and Michael Dubb as well, but the barn's really solid with their claims, the first time off the claim on the turf.
I think you have a stat you want to show them. We're going to show you a stat on that.
And over the past 5 years, first off the claim on the turf at Gulfstream specifically, 40%, so 6 for 15 there, 8 for 15 in the money, and a positive ROI of $5.18. Not to mention, that was a pretty key race that he came out of. We saw Fars be the winner of there, even Bossman some pretty solid allowance horses that he was facing in his last start.
Yeah, and and that horse, he was a little hard to rate in that race. He was a little keen. He had to check a little bit at the 5/8 pole. I think he's got a big shot today.
And the 7, Aplomb to the outside, just as outside of him. You go back and you look at his last race, going the mile and a 16th, and I thought he did chase a long shot who kind of opened up on the field, and considering how the pace collapsed in front of him and kind of set up for some of the closers off the pace, I thought he hung in there really gamely, because he had every excuse to kind of throw in the towel, but he just kept on trucking along down on the inside. If you go back to his race going the mile, where he did go gate to wire, I don't think he's fast enough to make the early lead, but he could prove to be a little bit more versatile and prove as an upsetter.
Yeah, and top connections today with trainer Mike Maker. It's good with this 31 to 60-day freshening, and Javier Castellano in the saddle. So I got it on my ticket too. We're basically in agreement, just flip-flopped around a little bit.
Race 4 on the card, a restricted maiden special weight for fillies, 6.5 furlongs onto the main track. And this race is tough, because we have 2 first-time starters coming out of very good barns. We also have a horse who's coming in off of a layoff since May. So I guess we'll start the conversation off with the 1 Ad Ludum to the inside. Gets Lasix for debut. Well-bred filly by Midnight Lute out of a successful appeal male.
Yeah, and John Velasquez in the saddle, but always handling that adventurous inside post in its debut. Do have it on my ticket, but one of the horses you have to respect.
You have to respect, and we just have a little stat here for what it's worth over the past 5 years with 3-year-old first-time starters sprinting on the dirt. The barn is only 15% and just about a negative ROI, but they always run very well. So this is a very small field. There's a lot going on, and I think you have to respect this horse for the connections alone. It attracts the likes of Johnny Velasquez, and the barn can win with first-time starters. But you went into a different direction, as did I. The 3 Shake and Sleek is one you opt for with Eddie Please.
Yeah, this one a 5-wide third versus a state-bred maiden special weight competition in her 6 furlong career debut. Is back with the Florida bred competition today. Went up, tracked the pace, retreated against Open Company, going 7 furlongs last time out. Paco Lopez handling the turn back to 6.5 furlongs today. I think this is a good spot for this horse. I don't know what is on the morning line. I got 6-1. I think it might be a little bit of a sneaky in there.
Okay, the 5 Publicist is one who we haven't last seen at Belmont back in early May there, and she wasn't really respected by the public in her debut. She went off at 37-1, and that was out of the David Jacobson barn. But since then, they perhaps have retooled her. She's been clocking some pretty solid workouts up at Palm Meadows, and not to mention the field that she faced, Lady Serena. She came back to win an allowance race at Belmont. We see Coming Attraction. She actually ran here recently. She was a good second and a 2 other than allowance with an 87 by her speed figure. So that was a pretty classy race from top to bottom. I know she was well beaten, but perhaps something went south there. And they bring her back, I think, in a reasonable level. It's Florida bred.
And bring her back into the Carlo Vaccarezza barn, and a nice pick there. And what's that one on the morning line? Oh, they actually have the other one as their choice.
3-1 there. I just threw in the 2 Xena rules in here, now cutting back to the 6.5 furlongs, because her race against Maiden Special Weight Company in Ola Charlotte, who came back to run a really strong third and allowance optional claimer next out. Low profile connections. I know the trainer's trying to get his first win of the meet, but that horse ran a big race against non-restricted company.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if this horse won. I didn't use it because, went off at double-digit odds last time out and just thought maybe this was a little tough spot. I did throw in the 6, a horse in here, El Verdado, just because it's a daughter of Big Brown, debuting from Marty Wolfson. 12 workouts showing. This horse been waiting a long time to get to the races.
Race 5 on the card, a 30,000 non-winners, the 2 lifetime event, 5 furlongs on the turf, and the 5 Meet Me for a Smoke on the drop in class to the $30,000 level. Proves to be, or figures to be, probably the favorite in here and the horse to beat.
Yeah, this one is dropping, as you mentioned, to this non-winners up to $30,000 level. Returned from a 4-month layoff in that race, chased the pace, finished a little bit of trouble in there, steadied at the 3/8 pole versus $25,000 optional claimers. Dave Casson, Jonathan Gonzalez starting to ride back in form, had a win on yesterday's card. I think this is a logical horse in here.
And Scuba Sue was really sharp in that race, so I think this filly's meeting easier company. I respect her, but I went in a different direction just because of the trip that the 4 Glamour Queen had last time out. She was very, very wide going that final turn, and I hope she has the ability to just save a little bit of ground, because whatever acreage you give up on the final turn at a 5 furlong sprint does kind of cost you. Now, did it cost her just about 10 lengths? Maybe not, but I'm hoping kind of with that inward post position last time out, she had to break 9 out of 9 horses, and that they can save a little bit of ground and rally from off the pace today. I just thought that she did lose a tremendous amount of ground in that final turn.
That's a good price on that horse there, and we'll see how that works out.
We both throw in the one Just Give Me a Kiss to that rail post, and does have a little bit of backlash, should be running late.
Yeah, and the faster they go up front, the better it'll be for that horse.
All right, that's races 1 through 5. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Rainbow 6, $4.1 million in that carryover right after this commercial break. Welcome back to Gulfstream today. Now the Rainbow 6 is quickly approaching us here on this morning show, and it does kick off in race 6 on today's 11 race program. And we do have a $4.1 million carryover today once again, and mandatory payout this coming Saturday if it is not taken down today or tomorrow. And this is actually the 50th day that it's been continuing since it was last hit.
50 days, so that's why it's up to 4.1 million, and just see if we can get it today or tomorrow. If not, we got that mandatory payout, as you said, on Saturday.
All right, well, we'll see how far we can get today. We did hit it yesterday. I had the pick 6 and you had the pick 5, so hopefully lightning can strike once again in the same place. We'll see the ticket, $86.40, as we started off with just 2 horses, using the 1 and the 3, using 3 horses in the next 3 legs of the sequence. And as we get to race 10, there was a big scratch in race 10, our feature race of the day, perhaps the very short price favorite in that race. So I'm going with the other Christophe Clement filly and the 8 Bride to Be as we cap it off. I know the 6 horse in the last race is a lot of people's probably singles at even money. But I have a couple of sneaky horses in there, so we'll get to that in just a little bit. But we started off with race 6, 7.5 furlongs on the turf.
Yeah, and I lost my top selection in here, the scratch of the number 8 6-inch yield. So I scratched into the number 7 horse in here, Sing One Song. Ships in from the Windy City into the Mike Petro barn. Makes her first start since closing to finish 3rd and 2nd, respectively, in a pair of turf races. And that was on yielding surfaces. It was at Hawthorne during November. Edgar Zayas will be in the saddle. I know you have a stat that you want to show, or do you want to show the replay first?
We'll show the stat since you're talking about the 7, Sing One Song. And look, I respect her. I throw her into the top 3 there. But for trainer Mike Petro, first time on the trainer switch on the turf at sprint distances. 047 actually. So I thought that was kind of a tricky stat because this mare is well bred for the turf. She's been competing against similar company out there at Arlington and at Hawthorne. So I think one you have to use protectively. Maybe I'm taking a stand against her because I really like the 3 Blavatsky, and we'll see this last replay. Julien Leparoux was aboard last time out, and we'll pick it up here from the 3/8 pole actually, and this is where she gets into a little bit of trouble on the backstretch, and Julian's trying to get her into a spot, and the hole just completely closes up on him, unfortunately, and then he has to kind of recover, and it's hard to overcome something like that, especially at a 5 furlong sprint. Not to mention then it gave the ability of the 1-2 is inside to kind of float him a little bit wider there in the final turn, and he really just lost all hope from having to check on the backside there, and still gets into some trouble. As you can see, the 3 horses kind of weaving in and out there. So I think you can give her the benefit of the doubt, go back to the drawing board and thinking that if she gets a better trip today, we're going to see a different outcome. And
ridden by Julien Leparoux, as you mentioned that day and yesterday, 3 wins on the card. He's been riding in great form. It certainly can make a great case for the number 3 horse Blavatsky to be on the top of your ticket.
And you threw in the 2 Angel of Love in here just at the bottom. Looks to be sitting that stalking pace.
Yeah, you know, he's a solid 2 lifetime turf winner, 2 back. Is hoping to get away from the gate trouble free. Had a little bumping incident at the start, but tracked the pace, finished 5th, was beaten 2.5. There's a horse that might sit a nice trap, as you say.
The one Arella Princess I'll just use in there only has 1 turf try and actually a 62 buyer speed figure, which would kind of make her at least a little bit competitive against this company. Not to mention it was against allowance optional claimer, and Mike Trombetta does a great job with some of his acquisitions and transitioning them to the turf. So that's a sneaky horse, but I really like the 3 off of that trip in the last start.
And that one horse we were just talking about, jockey changed to Paco Lopez this afternoon, so we'll see how that works out. And seeing that replay from Blavatsky, boy, you sort of got to use that one on your ticket.
She had significant trouble in there, and Paco Lopez, as you said, on the 1, who that's another rider who has been riding some really savvy races lately and proven to with success. The 7th race, though, kicks off our 50-cent late pick 5. We started off at 6 furlongs on the main track, and I'm interested to see your late pick 5 and your approach that you took.
Let's see my late pick 5 ticket here. You see I went 3 deep, 3 deep, 3 deep, 3 deep, and you see in the last race, the 6 horse that you did not single will be my single in the last race. I just thought that horse was a standout, and I didn't have a good feeling about these early races, so I wanted to go 3 deep in there.
Okay, and we'll start it off with Navajo Kitten. I believe you have a replay of this horse immediately exiting the break last time.
Yeah, immediately exiting break, and you're going to see it come out at the start here, and you see number 6 horse that day gets in trouble as soon as the gate starts. It just gets bopped around there again, you know, gets hit, actually gets shuffled back in that race. I'm going to switch it. We're going to go to the stretch now in a couple of seconds. You see this horse making a move now after all that trouble, was last early on, comes through the stretch in here and just gets totally shut off. You'll see it coming up just here, actually finishes 3rd and put 2nd. You'll see it come over right now and just get, you know, I thought she was moving in and just had to stop. I thought she might get in there and then just had to put on the brakes, and I just thought of that performance that I put her on top of the ticket. She was placed 2nd in that race that afternoon.
And was she closing into a hole that didn't really exist?
Well, I'm not going to get into.
Well, no, but it's still, I thought it was significant trouble, and she's one you have to use in the Rainbow Six. And yes, she did get bopped around a little bit out of the gate. And she's a horse that wants to be, you know, sitting that stalking trip. And horses can just completely turn things around after some trouble in their last race. The 4 Cassidy's Valentine was one that I was going to use. They went kind of slower early fractions last time out against when she faced winners for the first time last time out at that open 12,500 level. She couldn't really close into it. Yes, she faded, but that was also against much tougher company. You go from a horse who, yes, she took a long time to finally break her maiden, but faced open company. Now she's facing that non-winners of 2 condition, and that's always an angle I like to play because it is a big class relief in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's a good pick on your part. And what about the 3 in here? And I thought Cherry's Wind was a late striding type. Things get really dicey on the front. Close to be 4th behind a pair of next out winners, Lovely Elle and Pam Pam last time out. Rowan Cretan is the trainer. Jonathan Gonzalez in the saddle. This is a horse that could end up sitting a nice little trip in there. I don't know what it is, a 4-1 in the morning line, so actually not a big price.
She fits this bill very well, and I have no real knocks against her. Sometimes she has been a bit of a money burner, but last time out, Lovely Elle, we did see come back to get her non-winners of 3 on the turf. We saw Pam Pam come back, non-winners of 3 for 6,215 conditions. So yes, she's a horse. I think that's you can go different directions in there, and if you have an idea, maybe stick to it, but it could be a very formful race.
Yeah, and it's a 6-horse field, so if you have the ability to maybe go a little deeper in there, feel free.
All right, we'll move on to the 8th race, a maiden $16,000 race. A mile onto the turf course, just 1 scratch in there, and the 5 Spring Mountain Mist on the drop-in class for trainer Bill Mott. She was last seen against maiden $25,000 company, and kind of got a slow start at the game. She was rallying late, so maybe the added distance back to the mile should help.
Yeah, and she broke from that tough post and sitting behind the pace in 11th, and she rallied, as you mentioned, to finish 5th against 25 maidens, going 7.5. Proved post, the stretch out to mile, to me, are positive moves.
And 9 to 5 though on the morning line.
I don't know about that. I didn't realize that.
I wish we would have seen a little bit more from her. How we saw her show so much speed going the mile and a 16th at Gulfstream back on the 14th of February to her being double-digit lengths from off the pace. I know they went slowly up front going the mile and a 16th, and she still couldn't deliver for me. So that's why I tried to, dig for information, trying to find some other horses in here. The Too Hot was one of them. Dane Kabisky actually having a good day yesterday. I believe he ran a really good second with one of his horses earlier in the card, and a big winner in a nice allowance race in the middle part of the card. So the Too Hot is one, and we have a statistic for the barn actually. Dane Kabisky over the past 5 years with maiden special weight to maiden claimers going from dirt to turf. 4 for 9, 44%, 56% in the money, and a big positive ROI of $5.46. You look at the breeding on the bottom side, she's kin to KDO, who is a $160,000 earner, 2-time turf winner. 4 foals have won on the turf, so there's a little bit of pedigree to back up this move.
I added it after I had the scratch of a horse I had picked in the Arara into the 3rd spot because the horse hasn't been seen since Indiana Grand, and I was to the, maybe I'll watch a race here, but you make some good points with the number 2 horse in here, and that is Hot.
Hot. That's it. The 6th Virgin Marina is one you threw in, sitting a good 4th last time out.
Yeah, it's expected to show more after responding to both that surface switch and the addition of blinkers with the 4th, beating 2 3/4 lengths at this level and the distance. Just another wide open affair in my estimation.
The last sneaky horse that I'll throw in here is the 3 Lynn Diesel. We saw, I think it was Marcus Vitale do it with Give to UK Cats. I believe that was a horse. He's been doing really well with this type of transition from the dirt to the turf. They actually move up, and if this horse moves up at all, I think she could be competitive. She is by North Light, and then you get on the bottom side. The mare never tried the turf, but the second dam actually really liked the turf. She was 4 for 6 in the money on the turf, so just a nice 10-to-1 shot maybe to shake up the pick 5 or pick 6. Race 12 on the card. Big scratch of the 1 Avalancha, 8 to 5 on the morning line for this maiden 12,000 race, 6 furlongs onto the main track. So you have to kind of go back to the drawing board because you figured that horse had a legitimate shot in here.
I thought it was a very important horse, and the Rainbow 6 and the pick 5 sequence did go with number 4, scratched into Lesia Elena. This one is a solid in defeat when she tracked tepid fractions last time out. Finished second. She was beaten 4 lengths at this level and distance. I just thought off that performance in the scratch of the 1 horse, moved this one up. I don't know what she is on the morning line, but she's 5 to 1, ridden today by Carlos Oliveira, who's been riding some interesting horses and getting some long shots to come over the line. This one not a long shot anymore, but I think this horse can be sneaky in this race.
Okay, the 5 seems she should. We didn't show the replay of this, but you can even just see it in the short comment. I'm a little bit dubious of this top pick because she was just not respected at all at 24 to 1 in her debut. But she broke probably a full second slower than the rest of the field. Everybody was probably 4 lengths in front of her, and then she decided to leave the starting gate. Now, sometimes that becomes a habit in the afternoon. Sometimes it's just a common mistake, and they just don't break well for whatever reason. But you'd have to think they maybe went back to the gate, schooled her a little bit. Hopefully she's going to break well today. And I think she's an unknown. You have to completely throw out that last race because she had the rest of the field spotted by lengths.
Yeah, I mean, she dwelt at the start, and basically it's over there. And I think they might even looked at it to see if she got a fair start, and if she did, she just didn't go out.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a shot in the dark.
Right.
You really never know what you're going to get with horses like that. But I think they're always sneaky to use in those multi-race sequences. We also have the 2 Calypso Music, who does draw the rail now today with the scratch of the 1, and she dueled on the front end at 7 furlongs, but they were just average fractions. Now she cuts back to the 6 furlongs again, past the big default of the 1 Avalancha. You're kind of grasping at straws here, which makes this race a little bit wide open.
Yeah, and I went with the 8 Miss Regalitis, hoping to stretch her speed to wire. She broke from the rail. She set the pace. She got nailed at the wire, but she was 62 to 1 last time out. So as you mentioned, the scratch of the 1 really changed the whole complexion of this race.
Race 10, our feature race of the day, a nice allowance race. Non-winners, a 3 lifetime going out to the turf at a mile. Big scratch of the one Akatia. And you would think that maybe this filly would be singled as she was coming out of some very nice races, Group 1s against the boys. Now that she's out, I think the 4 Sparkle Factor, the other Christophe Clement filly, is a huge factor in here, and she ran against some very nice horses. It's Only Acting Dad. We'll see that replay now. She was coming in off of that layoff since the 22nd of October and made her local debut there on the 27th of February. She does get into a bit of trouble here. We can see under Julien Leparoux, there's a blanket of horses in front of her. She unfortunately has to go, I don't know, 6, 7 wide there in the final turn. Just unfortunately gets herded out by horses. She still is left with absolutely no running room, and you can't see this really on the short comment there, but she is not given the ability to run until the last gasping breath of the stretch run. So she, and not to mention, It's Only Acting Dad, the winner, was second in the Belmont Oaks against Lady Eli. She has the potential. I could have even singled her today, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I had her in second behind the one horse in there. I did move up to 6, all in front, beating a length in the Grade 2 Lake George. When returning from a layoff last July, makes her first start. She came up empty, but that was in the 6th furlong. I believe Christy Cat at Belmont last September. Shug McGay has this daughter of Tappet, training consistently at Payson Park, preparation for the return. I wanted the one horse to be in here for this horse to carve out a better trip.
And yeah, it does kind of change the dynamics, but the 8 Bride to Be is one you use on the bottom there, and she's really done nothing wrong in all of her turf starts. She's a really consistent filly going into here. I'm concerned that she might be meeting a tougher company, as some of the others are coming out of some pretty key allowance fields, but she could use her speed from that outside post, and Paco Lopez, he's going to get aggressive with this filly.
Yeah, and turning back to a mile today after that nice performance against $25,000 optional claim is going that mile and the 16th.
All right, we'll cap it all off with the 11th and final race on the card, a maiden 16,000 out to the turf course once again. And your single in the late pick 5, the 6 Malibu's Most Wanted at even money. He's the horse to beat. Maybe I'm being a little bit ridiculous using several different horses, but he is even money on the morning line for a reason.
Well, yeah, it's even money on the morning line, but this is where if you want to get a decent price, and maybe you go a little deeper like you did in here. Not much to say about Malibu's Much Wanted. Drop it to this level, stretching out the mile, hoping the recent pair of chalk-burning performances is fixed today. It's Mike Maker, and I think the drop, Javier Castellano, makes this horse stand out. But, I wasn't positive in those earlier races, and that's why I singled in the last, which I don't love to do.
We have a couple of horses who are stretching out for the first time, a couple horses who are getting to the turf for the first time. So this horse very well could get pressured on the front end, and he looks like a horse that just doesn't have a whole lot of follow-through, but we could see that some of these other horses don't pan out on the turf or can't go the distance. So that's what makes him all the more competitive in here and very tough to beat. So I landed on him as my top selection, but the 5 Set Out is one who, from a figure standpoint, he was on a good course 2 starts back. He didn't get off to a great start, and he was not respected by the public. He was slow that day. Last time out, though, from a buyer's speed figure standpoint, he ran a race that was a little bit more, it was competitive enough to maybe figure with the 6 Malibu's Most Wanted. So I used him in here, and you use him in the exact as well.
Yeah, and it's trainer Dane Kibitz, we were just talking about. It has this co-working forwardly at Payson Park. Corey Lannery in the saddle this afternoon, turning back to a mile, dropping today, failed to earn the check, as you mentioned in another race. This horse, certainly 12-1 on the morning line, I think it has to be on your exacted ticket if you do, or maybe put it on top if you don't think the 6 is in that perfect spot.
And the 3 Patty Ryan, I actually used him in the final leg. Right. The 2 Cast Party is a long shot who's getting to the turf for the first time, and I think he'll show speed on the front end. But the 3 Patty Ryan is another one. We last saw him on St. Patrick's Day. He didn't deliver. That was the hunch bet of the day by Patio Prado. But his race against McFly, they went pretty fast in that 7.5 furlong race, and we actually see McFly entered back in a very nice race on Saturday. So from a class perspective, I think this horse is getting a huge class relief.
Yeah, you know, we're going back to the future with McFly there.
Yeah.
And 10 Waddy, I closed it out with getting some class relief. Made a pretty nice move in the middle there, finished the 5th against 25 types.
Okay, well that's races 1 through 11. It's a tough sequence. If you respect the favorites, but you have a tendency to go against them in a couple of the legs of the sequence, it's kind of tricky, especially with the scratch of some of those key horses.
Yeah, we were looking at some of the races. We're not in too much of agreement in those earlier races, so we'll see how it goes.
All right, we're going to get the boot here, but thank you for joining us here
We're in
on
trouble, I think.
Gulfstream. I think we are in trouble. We'll be back there for races 1 through 11. The Rainbow Six starts in race 6 today. Thank you for joining us once again.
Our day begins early, preparing for the task ahead, focused on a single goal. Then it's showtime, ready to face another challenge. And while victory may be uncertain, you can always bet on us to be at our very best.